John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
あ、すみません、朝刊ありますか？
あ、はい。今ちょうど届いたところ。
あ、そうですか。はい。
110円。
はい。Second to last fucking page. You spelled it out beautifully. And that story would have opened a lot of eyes if they hadn't fucking buried it.
I'm glad you think so. Maybe next time.
I don't know how you do it, because I'm starting to not see the fucking point of any of this anymore.
Jake, I do it despite the indifference, because somebody has to tell the truth. Someone has to build a wall of information, brick by brick, story by story, until the fact cannot be ignored, and then things have to change. Don't they?
I don't know.
Welcome. Welcome back. Take your place again, Lancelot.
My lord.
Look, Sir Lancelot. He's back. I won't go ahead. No, they miss a battlefield. I think we do too.
We have lost our way, Arthur.
It's not easy for them, without the hard teaching of war and quest. It is only your example, Lancelot, that binds them now. Which is the greatest quality of knighthood? Courage, compassion, loyalty, humility? What do you say, Merlin?
The greatest. Well, they blend. Like the metals we mix to make a good sword.
No poetry, just a straight answer. Which is it?
All right, then. Truth. That's it. Yes, it must be truth. Above all. When a man lies, he murders some part of the world. You should know that.
When there is a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. When there's a lot of uncertainty, there is usually a lot of fear attendant to it. And how people react to fear is interesting. Some people just consume more. They say, I'll get it while I can because it's all going to blow up anyway. They become more and more materialistic. Some people want to be on the right side when the doors close, so they become fundamentalists in one sense or another. They grab on to right as opposed to evil. They want to be one of the 144,000 that gets in the door. And the other group uses it, the uncertainty, as a way to deal with their inner relationship to uncertainty, and they go inward. And you can see the society dealing with the fear that way. And so that real thrust to the kind of righteousness is staying at the plane of good and evil. It's staying at the plane of polarities. And it's not seeing, as G. Manly Hall said, that he who knows not that the Prince of Darkness is but the other face of the King of Light knows not me.
Hey guys, Andre Hodge, Having a Truth, Infinite Potential Healing with you once more. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your courage to challenge the reality with contemplating these sort of things, whether you accept what I say or not. I honor you for your courage to pursue your awareness in this interesting dynamics we're in at the moment. I want to really, I've had some really cool inspiration recently over processing some stuff that's gone on of late. So yeah, I want to transmute some stuff and be a bit of a brat. But I just also want to do a big shout out to all you Goldcrest, Aaron, Falconer, Brokoviches that are having the courage to bring in the next generation and courageous to be responsible for our lives and stuff. I wish you a happy Mother's Day, and I don't envy you. It's tough. I've never really had the chance to be in a position to even bring the next generations in, so I honor you for the courage of it despite everything's going on. I've had chats with some of the people around me, like Captain Marvel and Carlene and stuff, and the next generations are going to be fully lit, so I'm just preparing for them, right? And the way I operate, which is maybe little bit misinterpreted, is I've had the privilege of operating with a lot of people that have very, very vast perceptions, and the reality is most of us are transparent to these sort of beings, and in my own way most people are as well, right? So the way I operate is I put all my shit out there, being transparent, and if I'm going through stuff, I let you know it. I give you all the data to process me as an algorithm, because the way I operate with people, I basically, in my algorithm, I know it's basically about 10,000 variables with people that form a pattern that I work out, including everything that's done and stuff, and everything I've done to them, everything people have done for me and stuff, and I keep an equation always. It's part of my honor aspect, and so whatever mechanics other people use, I offer all the data proactively to assist in discernment, because my attitude, if people have got shit to hide, then that's a red flag. So don't underestimate what you don't think can be seen isn't being seen, alright? So the reason why I'm just saying this, I feel like some people may misinterpret me, okay? And I just want to clarify this, and I'm not trying to push me at all and stuff. It's just this is a teaching in itself to discern people and stuff, because I've had some people going through a lot of really, really hard stuff, and obviously there's who do you trust, who do you seek, and stuff like that. And it is a maybe this video will help with that, why it is so complicated. But say if people are in abusive situations, and I see us all, if you're a guardian and aligned with the truth in this occupation, this being Amplify the Echoes of Our Soul's Ancient Truth Part 5, and I've got a name for it, I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but it's relative to what lays beyond the narrative of our potential, alright? YouTube has a limit for the size of names, and I like to write a lot, if you haven't noticed, so I limit that down. But so my attitude is we're all in an abusive human situation for the 25,000 years of occupation that we're trying to overcome, and the odds are stacked against us, and it's like the ultimate challenge on a soul to be here and stuff, right? And so the metaphor of being in an abusive situation, because I've been in it in my own way, is that you get very, very low life force, because perhaps you've got a psychic parasite partner or whatever like that, or a situation at work that grills you down to not having much, right? And this world does that, and this video will help you on many macros of this. to understand why. I hope that's my intent, to offer clarity on stuff that might be very obfuscated. But yeah, what happens in the good people in bad situation, they can get grinded down, right? And so I know from my past, when I was in an abusive sort of situation, in a foreign city, under chaos and really extreme circumstances, is because you have so reduced life force, you don't have the budget to change. And I've done foundational concepts maybe about 6 months ago or so, relative to the life force investment cost to change, right? So to change, like go from one city to another, if you drive, it takes energy, fuel in the car and stuff like that. So to the transition from point A to B has a cost. You know what I mean? So change has an energetic cost potentially. So if you're grinded down and you're in a bad situation, you need to find a boost to go through into a brand new situation. And because the situation is so bad and you're so depleted, you don't really have in yourself, at least the dynamics of what you're in, right? The barrage that comes in, you can expect. If you go to an unknown situation, all right, there's all the variables that you can't measure and stuff. So the fear can kick in of the uncertainty that keeps you in that state, all right? And what I want to say to those people out there that are in that, all right, yes, that is potential. It could be worse, and you're bracing for it. But the dynamics you're in, if it is extreme, okay, it may be the bottom of the pit of the extremity of what you can accept in and experience in your whole life. And really bad situations don't really come along that often. So it takes a lot of courage to go into the unknown, and it's a great test, all right? So my advice is to like in the contrarian view, the trinity of choices, there's good inaction and bad, and inaction is a choice, right? So a lot of people, when they've they actually need healing, or they don't know, you know what I mean? Like I just come out of Influences Part 1, and I've got more to offer on that, and I got a lot of inspiration about a lot of stuff, because there's a bigger thing going on here that I'm going to get into in a sec. But what I'm offering is two things. Changing offers you more potential than what you're presently in, right? And the world is pretty crazy, right? And I understand all the variables in it. A lot of people are maxed out, but perhaps inaction has got you into the depleted state. Does that make sense? So there was choice points earlier on that you didn't choose, and your gut instincts and warnings and all this sort of stuff, and perhaps you're a super psychic that didn't accept yourself, and you all the mechanisms in you are honorable and stuff, and the majority of people out there aren't, all right? All sorts of things. But what I've had is, and I can feel this, is because of my transparency and my energy, being able to do remote and stuff, I know I can challenge a lot, and that's why I put all my faults and all that sort of stuff out there for you guys to read, all right? So if there is a perception out there of you, if whatever you're going through is a burden to someone like me, I did like in the Influences, if you've watched that, there's a Shadow Self section. That can be a program that justifies you doing the hamster wheel where you're in, alright? So you've got to understand the context of where, say, someone I come from. Like, I've been humble, and it's because I've offered it, and it's for discernment. So like 8 years ago I was doing Galactic Special Forces stuff, like freaking recycling species and shit, and I was doing it on $10 a day, like bankrupt, destroyed and stuff like that. As much as what you may be going through, you're probably not as bad as that, right? So just be aware that the thinking you're a burden to someone like me is not the case at all, right? And I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it anyone in this sort of industry that is out there to provide assistance to people that are in the worst state. That's what we live for. It's a blessing and a privilege for someone like me, for anyone in their trouble, to come and see us, all right? You were never a burden. You're a privilege, and you've probably got potential on the other side that you're misinterpreting on that, and your life can flip very easily. And that's where I've done that image. I'll show it quick. I'm going to be careful with the images because it's a bit windy and stuff, so might be a bit of a dog's breakfast around me, but I'll just show you this quick, right? I've showed this many times. Let's say if your inaction justifies a big time limit, then you can get into a worse situation, sort of thing, right? So a being like me, and what I do is to make the maximum of your mortality. Time is an incredible variable that we have, and getting onto speed is what it's all about ASAP, and that's why I offer these sort of videos, because my efforts are to share what I've discovered that aren't in any books or anything like that, to help people get up to speed ASAP, because and that's where this video is going to be pretty cool, because it's going to explain a lot, because I feel there's a big raising of the bar of survival sort of things going on, and so a lot of people have had comfort for a long time, and they've been in inaction state, right, when they should have acted and stuff. And that's where I say I'm so proactive and stuff. If I have any sort of issues, I was getting on everyone's table. If I came across someone, I'd invest in them and stuff, and be super thorough, and be open and willing to go against my contrarian of what might be blocking me with an individual, and go and explore on the other side of that, all right? Not many people are actually courageous enough to realize that the confirmation is a misinterpretation in their body, because everything's upside down, all right? Anyway, so I just wanted to clarify that. Those of you that think that you are a burden, you're never a burden, all right? You're a blessing to us if you're courageous enough to explore and invest in someone like me, all right? So, I thank those guys of you that have trickled through and gotten through all the bullshit and found me and stuff, and valued me, and it allows me to keep going like this. So I look forward to whoever might be out there, and we'll see what happens, right? So today I'll give a bit of context. I did influences part 1, and there's another one to do and more to do. I might offer solutions that I use to help you guys out there. Reality is pretty interesting, and that influences part 1 I'll be able to insert into this as well, to show you how all these things work and the shit we're up against, all of us, right? So there's been something really cool and not so cool because of how things happen, but it was like, how can I describe this? We're all being fracked with, sorry for swearing. I might let it rip because I'm in brat mode, alright? Because this is going to be really cool. It's going to give a lot of context, because I come from Michael Jordan, 90s, old school sort of shit, alright? Like there was this rookie that came up against Michael Jordan once, alright? And Michael just polite before the game. He was if you watch The Last Dance, he's like, he's just a dominant alpha on the court. It's his court sort of thing, right? And he was playing against his team, and there was a rookie. His name was Stacey Augmon. It's a pretty classic sort of thing, right? And Michael just was polite and asked him how he was, and he was like, oh yeah, I feel like shit, got sore, I'm not feeling that great. And it's like, he was sort of playing for the pity in Michael Jordan, alright? Okay? He was like, I want you to back off and give me an easy night. I'm not feeling that great, alright? And this is like the apex of basketball sport, right? And what that did to Michael Jordan, it's like lit up. Ooh, you feel shit, all right? You're vulnerable, you're weak, you're wounded bull, all right? So Michael Jordan went and got like fucking 50 on him and absolutely shellacked him, made him look like shit, all right? And what this rookie, Stacey Augmon, said was, what he learned is never to reveal your pains, your wounds, your injuries, to not to obfuscate or create illusion or not allow pain or hurt and all that sort of shit. But what Michael Jordan would do was, if he had a bad game, or if he wasn't on his game, or if he had a rolled ankle or some shit, everyone was on the lookout, all right? Because it's like, uh-oh, he's sick. Uh-oh, he's got a rolled ankle. Because what he usually did was transmute that and have an awesome game. And he transmuted his weakness into strength and took the variable of the challenge and raised his game a lot. So there's been some interesting things going around me, and it's because we're all pretty at a high level of awareness. And I'm not bragging or anything, but I've done a lot, all right? I've had to be humble because people are looking for egos and all that sort of shit. And egotism is, if you look at the Influences Part 1, it's more along the lines from Michael Zone's aspect of hiding what you're not willing to face, all right? It's like bubbling up, needing to prove yourself. So the whole perception in society of egotism is wrong, all right? It's what you're hiding, all right? And that's why I've humble like the dust, all right? Reduce yourself to zero. So, yeah, I had to go back to my secret site again, and it was very interesting and very demanding what I do, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but I have to be very fit for many reasons. And I've said in the past, for psychic defense, I don't really defend myself, I recover quick, because then I don't put fear in my absence of not being able to stop shit. I trust my ability to recover, and then it just becomes, you become invulnerable to certain extents and stuff. So, but there's always tests, and there's the reason why I don't proactively defend. It's like the scales of stuff against us. Knowing everything is, anyone that says that, it's a delusion. There's more that can be done that we can usually perceive. So you have to be able to react to the outcome of it and get up to speed ASAP. Because if you watch my our predictability shows early on in the multidimensional methods of 3D madness, that might be just a jab. The big punch is coming after that when you're off your game, all right? So you got to recover ASAP. So what happened is I was processing a lot of variables, and what happened, this is getting to the point, all right, is the morning before I had to go there, and I do it randomly, but the morning before I went there, I had this really interesting dream. I shared it with a couple of people around me, is that I was in this scenario. It was like, perhaps it was like a rest scenario where if I could defend myself, it would nullify the consequence that I was in. But what would happen is I could speak like this and blah, blah, blah. As soon as I get onto a certain topic, my voice was shut down and I couldn't speak. It was a bit like, I've used the metaphor of in the Constantine movie where the guy's trying to drink and he couldn't drink. It's just like, a bit like that. It was like, what the fuck? Blah, blah, blah. And the thing I was trying to say to defend myself that it was this variable was Metatron, the multi-Ds, alright? They were fucking with me, and they were fucking with this whole scenario that was going on. And when I was in the stream trying to defend it, anytime I tried to say that, I got shut down. So I know in the reality, a lot of investment, let's just say, is preventing me being heard and stuff, and that's cool. It is what it is. It's up to the individual to find me or not. And again, this video about the our potential beyond the narrative, we'll get into a lot of that, the mechanics of it. But my attitude, alright, a lot of people are like, ooh, I better not speak. My attitude is, I'm thinking the metaphor of, if you've ever watched the movie Shawshank Redemption, alright, it's a Very rewarding movie if you can get through it. Alright, so that's why it's one of the best on imdb.com. But Andy Dufresne is the character, and he's wrongfully arrested, and it was just like he was trying to endure like a crappy jail scenario and stuff, and there was no reading material and stuff, so he got the inspiration to try and get a library going in the jail and stuff. So he would write a letter, one a day, to the congressman or whatever and stuff, and he wrote it for a long time, and eventually what happened is they buckled to his will, alright, and they were just like, alright dude, fucking turn off the fucking letters, we're over it, we'll give you some books, you know what I mean? Let's stop. And this is the thing, alright? And he's like, man, look what I can achieve with one letter. I'm going to write 2 a day now. So he upped it, alright? So my attitude is, oh, you don't want me to fucking speak about this shit? I'm going to fucking speak about it so much. Like, I can't wait to fucking speak about it. And I had that dream maybe a couple of weeks ago from when this release is on and stuff. So, and then we had this dark eclipse or whatever sort of shit. And I sort of was brewing all these variables what went on. And the output is what I'm going to offer here. So this will be Echoes number 5. Amplify the Echoes of Our Soul's Ancient Truth number 5. And I haven't said the conclusion of what I'm going to say, but there's a purpose why I'm employing this theme, because I'm not going to abuse that theme, alright? I think it's going to be a very special one to really offer you guys a lot of basically the information I'm discerning that has been obfuscated for so long, alright? 20 years, you know what I mean? Ashiana Dean, it's absolutely phenomenal. Most people can't handle it, alright? And that's cool. I'm a veteran of this stuff, and my discernment and stuff. And in this, in many ways, I'll be sharing my mechanics of how I've always operated. I just thought everyone was like this, alright? Able to separate the information and consciousness Tetris line things up, you know what I mean? So it'll seem a bit like that, alright? But yeah, what I got what I meant, I shared the clip at the start about Ram Dass, about basically the Hunger Games of humanity. They're going to hoard, so a lot of people are going to go materialistic and want to milk everyone when everyone's down and stuff, and money and all that sort of shit. People are going to be in groups, alright? And I've got this thing called the sympathetic resonance to the falsehood. Like, humanity's got Stockholm syndrome for all these fucking ET groups and shit, alright? They think they're the good guys, but they're the perpetrators that set up us for being this very reduced DNA sort of shit, if you watch the rest of the series, alright? So people are going to the wrong and don't follow the herd, alright? But they're going to go through a lesson or not, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or people go within, alright? So I love that clip, and this raising of the survival bar with the inflation and what's going on in the world to distort, say, food and stuff. I've got the equation of what's underneath, from my perspective anyway. So it's an offering for you guys to just contemplate, process, see what you get. If it's wrong, that's cool. It's this. I'm not fucking public offering this if I'm in doubt. You know, I'm not going to be like, you know, most people are out there just offering shit because they don't know. And this is the funny thing about humanity, is like, they love mystery, they love like unknowns, but the truth is just like, oh, boring. They don't really want it. They love the uncertainty that mystery brings, because it's like an adventure or whatever. So my attitude is, yeah, like X-Files was cool, but it was like that, but I want to know, alright? Because I'm all about the foundation of truth to launch your perceptions, alright? So I'm offering this as a contemplation for you to see, to really discern a lot now, alright? and see through the bullshit. Because I'm going to introduce a concept called the sub-narratives, and I'm only going to use 5. You could have a lot more, but I think if you overdo it, it can be too complex. So you can put things in the ballpark. So just think of the narrative, which is what most people accept, and then there's sub-narratives, like the conspiracy things, and there's healing, and then there's control and all that sort of stuff. And what I've appreciated is operating at the 12D level. That's the level I think I've always worked at, and that's why I've come to realize that people haven't been able to perceive me because they don't actually see it. So people ask me about my heart and they can't perceive my heart and all this sort of stuff. It's fucking guarded in 12D and you don't have fucking access to that level. That's why, right? And I've got a story, but I've got a cool story about this warrior I met in 2009 when I was just beginning to wake up. And I've already been going half an hour and I don't want to go too long. And I'll share that story at another time. It's pretty cool. It's about auras and being a warrior and stuff like that, and hiding your energy from people, because I did something really noble and honorable that this guy revealed a truth to me. And I'm raising the bar in honor and integrity and stuff of those around me, and I'm really going to be very tight, unfortunately, about the vetting. So because my presence might cause issues, and I accept that, and I apologize for anything, but I'm fucking in firecracker mode and I don't give a shit, because I'm brewing probably to engage a secret squirrel I haven't dealt with for a while, but I'm forming a fucking naughty list and I'm seeing a lot of fucking bullshit and I'm just I'm ready to fucking go like Galactic Special Forces, alright? And I'm not going to tolerate bullshit, disrespect and all that sort of stuff. It's like I'm going to go in 100 eyes mode from Marco Polo, like teach people some roots, you know, like be the sensei sort of thing. So yeah, if you're still here, we'll get into it now, alright? So I put all this equation of many things that were going on around me and stuff, and it was very interesting. It's quite a technical sort of thing that went on. I would love to share it. It's not appropriate to, but the conclusion I got to via the stream and all this stuff was it was fuckery at a very high level of some very, very interesting variables and stuff. So I'm offering this to calibrate for those that may be involved. If they're still interested in me and stuff, that's cool. If not, that's cool. But I'm hitting some raw points, I think, and I just love it. I fucking love it. It's time to go Michael Jordan with the wounded ball, you know what I mean? So I think humanity's in a lot of trouble, and I don't think people are really up to it. So there's not going to be many that are really able to endure it. And I've talked about my journey. It was very hard, and I feel very grateful that I went through the hardship when the society was still there, and there was always a perception. That's why I got into currency trading. I was going to short the shit out of the market and make lots of money, because when things go bad, there's volatility, and that's where you can make a lot of money quick. Right? So I've talked a lot. I hope this is really interesting so far, and it's engaged you, and you really want to know this. And I also do the longer videos to like train up psychic and awareness stamina. I don't give a shit about short videos and all that sort of stuff. It's about like making it hard and testing people and developing skills and stuff. So yeah, if you're still here, we'll get into it now, alright? So I've shared this image, and I might be sharing it in big next to me. I'm trying to do that. Yeah, the narrative, if we focus on the narrative and truth and stuff, the narrative is trying to keep people corralled in an awareness level that doesn't let people see the truth and the variables at play, right? Or access people's potentials that lay beyond the 3D 5 sense, right? So there can be a resistance, a lot can be thrown at people, like I'm saying the influences show, and the future influences stuff. I'm aware of all these mechanics and stuff, and keeping people depleted as well, like lack the will to change in bad relationships and all sorts of shit, alright? Don't even know that healing is an option. Think healing is the Antichrist sort of shit, whatever. But what I'm inviting you to do is, once you get the ball rolling, and once you see the codex of everything, it can be very smooth sailing, because you're outshone the dark sort of thing, if I dare use those sort of linguistics. But yeah, that's just a metaphor of things. So my aim is to get people there ASAP to see what their potential lay is, right? Because there is a bigger thing going on here, that's for sure, right? So the battle has always been to keep people in this, and most people self-govern themselves by the reality and accepting the variables at play and stuff, and it is, to me, relative to life force and a lot of influences and stuff, but yeah, that's what it's about, rather than what lays outside their potential and that, right? So to me, the narrative of what goes on is always a very potent variable into people self-accepting this, okay? So if I get into the images, so this might be something new, alright? You might have an idea and stuff, but never really being able to visualize it. But yeah, basically, from a simplistic point of view, there's this overarching thing called a narrative, which is all the information, and somewhere beyond there, there's the truth, right? So if you remember the image that I showed earlier series about the Akasha bullshit records as an overlay of Earth and stuff, it's a metaphor of that, alright? And so what I'm inviting you to do is there's sub-narrative layers, alright, that are components to this, that, so if you break through the narrative, you can burst through to another layer and stuff, and the mechanics of things to obfuscate the truth that may be deep down, alright? So I'm just going to get through it to the next one, okay? So just think about that there's layers of the narrative, and these sub-layers are like what lays below the surface of an iceberg, right? And it's the mechanics of how the narrative get to the surface and all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of divers out there, but they don't comprehend what might be up against them and stuff, because they're not open to healing, they're not open to multi-dimensional, beyond the 3D 5 sense and all that sort of stuff. And aspects of the sub-narrative know us very well. We don't have any idea what we're up against, right? If you go back to the early episodes in the series, like the Babylon Massacre and the Ayani Massacre and all that sort of stuff, the occupation is brutal. It's not. It's like we're up against Michael Jordan and we're Stacey Augmans and we don't even know it. We don't even know the rules of the game, and we think things should be nice and stuff, but this is like control on a huge scale, right? And we're the last resort, perhaps, to something going even worse in the universe. You know what I mean? So I'll go to the next image. So this is all these things I've done are very quick, right? I haven't tried to spend a lot of time, because just to get the concepts down and make them simple, I don't really want to make it too complex. It's going to be a lot for people to take on board if it's very new concepts. A lot of people don't hear me anyway, and I've shown images about chips that get blocked, and like I said, my metaphoric voice in the reality is being suppressed, and that's all cool, alright? I'm just going to be me, and what happens happens. It's not all up to me. I'm just going to do my part and be my best and let and trust there's a lot of allies out there as well, right? So the up scale is dimensional level, the bottom scale is senses. So I've just done a 5 sense, like a 3D 5 sense sort of box. So the narrative fits in there, there's a sub-narrative that also fits in there, and then a lot of it actually fits outside that, right? And if you've listened to the clips that I've inserted with the Ashiana Dean, she talks about, you know, the Phantom Matrix-based teachings have a limit to go to, say, 9D in this reality. So think about that, right? When the beings might be operating beyond that, so they've created an untouchable aspect to them, alright? If they're shards of big oversouls and stuff, okay? Like, I know there's beings out there that are 11.5D, but that I've shared in the past. So shards of them might be in partnership with that and harvesting Kundalini and all that sort of stuff, alright? So, but what I'm saying is the real truth is, perhaps, if we just, for simple sake, and we accommodate Ashiana's level, the truth of what's going on is a 12D level, and it's very blocked. And there's this, I call it falsehood alamo. That's like the last layer of the sub-narratives that are all the occupational species and metagru and all that sort of shit that are preventing us getting the truth, right? Obfuscating it. They've limited us down, as I said in the Babylon Massacre, to very limited DNA. They've inserted, you know, into the radio body of the surface false information, so we've accumulated that in our past ancestral links and stuff, and so we have a sympathetic resonance to the falsehood that set up what I'm going to say is the Stockholm syndrome humanity has in this community and stuff, to the false teachers and false creatures that are in the soul, like at the soul level in the human body and that, alright? So yeah, this is just an expression of trying to show the different layers of, say, the 5-layer sub-narrative and stuff like that I'm gonna employ as a framework here, alright? So yeah, just it's an interesting image, and what I might be doing is pausing at times, just showing the image, so you can just pause it and just ingest it into your cellular memory, alright, as a reference. And don't worry what you don't get, it all goes into cellular memory for your algorithm and perceptions and stuff, so just go with it. Look to accumulate the consciousness Tetris layers, okay? So if I move on to the next image. So I dropped consciousness Tetris because I've used that in the past. I haven't used that clip for a while. But yeah, that if you have a reference of Tetris, right? Just think in the narrative, there's all these things going on. There's all different stories and stuff, and there's all different layers and that. So if I show you this image, it might be quite interesting, alright? So that's the layers of the sub-narrative and the narrative and the truth, right? But have a look at this. They're all made up of all different components, different species, different layers, different shapes, alright? And complicated in structure and stuff. So I've just done these very quick to sort of get them down, because I was on a real tear when I got this inspiration, and I've been processing it for a few days, and I just really want to, I think any sort of expression of this will really help a lot of people. So just think, there's not just a narrative, there's sub-narratives, alright? And there's different components in it that make it even more complex, alright? So, yeah, if I just move to the next image. So this is taking it to another level. Alright, so that's like the same image that I showed before, alright? But what I've done is I've just broken it down into variables and components. So what I might do is pause this image and show it up close and stuff, and take a bit of time, alright? So I might see you on the other side, so you can have a bit of a read, okay? So yeah, narrative, sub-narrative, apparatus of falsehood and the truth, alright? So this is just my quick jotting down a few things and all this. These are all components and explorations I've gone through in my life and stuff. And so what you can do is you can see, so if you see through the bullshit on one layer, you might slip through to the first sub-layer, and say there's people like Q, Alex Jones, David Icke, conspiracy sort of people. And so you slip through the narrative, you can go to the first sub-narrative, alright? And so I got this thing, and I'm not being offensive or anything, but there's an outrage mob, alright? There's people that are pissed off with the reality, and they want to know the truth, alright? But my attitude is, the system is ready to catch those people, all right? And then, if you lack the will to want to heal, right, and transmute that fire to want to go deeper in yourself rather than play a victim of the reality, the reality is set up to catch your victimhood. And they're going to give all these teachers out there that just chew up that energy. But if you watch the influencers release, there was weaponized information and stuff that gets shit into your energy field. And I'll extrapolate some of them a bit more detail at the start of the second one, and I was going to do that, but I got this inspiration to get this down because this is going to be very powerful and stuff. But yeah, just think, because there's things going on at the moment, and what I'm getting to is a conclusion that I've perceived relative to all the bullshit going on in the world, alright? So what I might do is not extrapolate that too much, and I'll leave images for you to go and pause and stuff and just contemplate. Maybe some of them are wrong relative to you. Maybe there's ones I missed, and I mean I've got this amount of space and I put a lot in there. But the idea is that, so the sub-layer is that teachers and organizations and stuff, I even put Q in there as well, right, as a sub-layer. To say at the third one, right, that's where the targeting kicks in. So if you watch the influencer sort of thing, a lot of stuff is to prevent you going further, to bog you down and shit, and most people don't even have the awareness to even contemplate that. So if you're dealing with someone that only accepts the first sub-layer and you're dealing with the third or fourth, you're going to be talking like double Dutch, you know what I mean? They're not going to even comprehend you, and that's why a lot of us deal with people in the narrative in this first sub-layer, but they're not willing to sort of heal, and people seeing having problems is a negative thing, but we're in an occupation and we've all been beaten up so much we don't even know, because we're not even given past life memories and all that sort of stuff. The religions are there at the sub-layer, at the narrative layer, and then there's sub-layers to catch that, like the medical system and all those sort of apparatus. Like the third layer might be the banking elite and stuff, and the alphabet agencies and stuff. And getting down to the bottom is like, you know, all the ET species that are occupying force, like the Galactic Federation and all these things that people think are the truth and are allies, but that's the Stockholm syndrome we're in. Like we're like appeasing our oppressors sort of thing, and we don't know it. We just, because we don't have the ability to penetrate the truth, the real truth, because it's an alamo of falsehood sort of thing, which I'll show you in the future images. But yeah, if I just read some of these. So say the fourth level is the high level perception and stuff, and there's a huge resistance. Like there's more resistance the deeper you go, because the more you see and the more you're a threat. Alright? Say for example, top layer is we just take money and we accept it. The second layer is the money system and the banks, you know, and what they're doing. The third layer might be the banking families and stuff, and then the fourth layer is the species that control them, or the AIs or whatever sort of stuff that people can't accept, alright? Or the multi-dimensional sort of aspects to it that we don't even see, alright? And the phantom matrix engagement. And then the bottom is obviously, the bottom layer is metaguru, alright? So you think metaguru is the bottom layer, all the minion species trickle through, the billionaires who they work for. I had this really, said this to a few people, I watched this interesting documentary called The House of Maxwell, and it's about Ghislaine Maxwell, the chick that was dealing with Epstein and all that sort of stuff, and it went back into her ancestry relative to her father, and her father in the 80s in England was he was trying to take on Rupert Murdoch for the news sort of stuff in England, and he did, but it was all a facade and stuff, and he, like, there was the 1987 collapse, and obviously it caused a lot of stuff, and he was it was all a facade and an illusion that he created of luster and success, and that when he was overextended in debt and all this sort of stuff, and then when it all fell apart, it was like a huge loss. Like the corporation was worth, say, £1 billion, but it was like overall £3 trillion in debt. So there was two trillion pounds in shortfall when he used all the pension money and all this sort of shit, and he didn't let people see it and all that. And what I'm getting to is that there were people around him, like board members and people that worked with him, but they couldn't believe someone would do that. They couldn't believe like a billionaire scumbag, alright, would have an agenda that could create all this shit, alright? And the way I see it, and that's where I said with Carlene, like, you gotta, like, watch Billionaires, scumbag mode. you gotta empathize with the scumbags out there, alright? Because there's a lot of billionaires that society is portraying as people's champions, but if you dig deep, how the fuck did they get to the apex of money, alright? Do you think this system would allow someone to get billions, hundreds of billions, to actually have an effect in reality if they were, what sub-layer do they work with? You know what I mean? Like, where is their soul aligned to, sort of thing, in this occupied reality, okay? So this, what I got with this guy, he was like some species, alright? And he was just an agent of chaos. It wasn't about creating order. They're chaos agent. It's chaos versus order, alright? And so he was just like a bomb to create all this distortion in the reality that created all this unhappiness, which the Phantom Matrix feeds on, alright? This reality feeds on, the false grid feeds on, and all that sort of stuff, alright? And so this is what I also got, alright? Is, you know, these characters at the sub-narrative layers and stuff, right? They've dropped things like the New World Order and all this sort of stuff. So the outrage mob, who are polarized to these people, they portray that as a negative thing because it's the source of where it comes from, alright? But how is this? My attitude is like, oh, you fucking tricky bastards. You've said that and you've planted it because you know these outrage people will polarize towards it and then actually see perhaps as a solution as a negative thing because it's come out of the mouth of one of these fucking sub-narrative sort of key players. You know what I mean? Like, government is definitely what's going on with the government and military. It might be second or third layer. You know what I mean? Third or fourth. Okay? And it trickles through, and the system knows that there's going to be an outrage mob. You know what I mean? So it feeds it. And so what we do is we polarize towards potentially at our solution, alright? Because chaos is what the Phantom Matrix is about. Order is what the Guardians and all that are about. Do you think you operate well in chaos? Like, I've had to train myself in all sorts of chaos, and probably you do too. But we all like order because it's very pure and efficient and conducive to brewing, say, concepts like this, what I said, like putting in our algorithm and our genius together to form understandings to help assist the fellow man and stuff to get up to speed in this occupational sort of structure that's been, you know, perhaps a huge challenge that we don't even know, alright? So I'm just inviting you to think and contemplate, is shit being feeded into the narrative and sub-narratives to feed those that aren't willing to do the work and stuff? And that can just inflame what was already going to brew. Does that make sense? And steer them off the wrong path and create polarity when it's not really valid, okay? And it might use what we seek as a weapon against us. And that's the complexity of all these sort of things, right? And yeah, it's just a really interesting concept that I thought I'd introduce here as well, right? So I'm going to move on. So after that complexity, alright, so that's the narrative, and that's the mechanics of it and stuff. So say I've drawn a dot to dot of there's a potential codex to get through to the truth. Does that make sense? And my attitude is truth is always very efficient. That's why I've got this quote that I love. It's by this guy called Thomas Cooper, and it's the one I go by. Fear and falsehood dread truth. Fear and falsehood dread investigation. Truth invites it. Truth from me, always wants to be a match to being understood. That all these sublayers are needed to actually obfuscate the truth. Does that make sense? So, like, when you speak the truth, like, your throat chakra is very clear. When people lie, like I did that clip relative to Excalibur and Arthur asking Merlin the noble thing about truth, the movie is like Arthur is a metaphor of a line with the land, and when there was shit going on, the land suffered, but when he was in good spirits, the land flourished and stuff. And I think that's a metaphor of our alignment to Earth Mother and stuff. You know what I mean? There's the acting is probably pretty crap. I used to love it in the 80s, but there's some bad things. But there's some really awesome teachings in that, like the Grail quest of sending the knights out externally when the secret was you and the land are one. He forgot the truth in himself. He had self-mastery, and that was the key. All right. So it's a great metaphoric teaching and all sorts of variables. And if you've received the emails or downloaded the audios from me relative to the Ashiana recordings, there's a thing about Arthur and the Camelot and stuff, and that was an era that we've all probably been battling all this shit for a long time, alright? So yeah, I just, like, the narrative wants to bury the truth, alright? We want to get to the bottom of the truth, like, what lays buried underneath and sort of stuff. It's just an interesting concept, and I feel the energy required to bury the truth is pretty much unsustainable. That's why the escalation of shit goes on, just to hide it, and that's what's going on in the reality now, alright? So if I keep moving on, yeah, just the top thing, it doesn't add up, so we've got questions, and then we can go on investigation. You know what I mean? Like, there's layers, and it's like, how deep does this rock go? And I think my attitude, I've gotten to the bottom of it, alright? And that's why I'm sticking my head out at the moment. Not many people want to be aligned with me, but that's cool. It's an offering, it's a choice. And yeah, people want to be, you know, in that clip with Ran Dass, they want to be seen as in the group sort of thing, and that's cool. I don't give a shit. I think groups and unity is a vulnerability, guides, light language and all that sort of shit. I don't fucking like, alright? So yeah, moving on. So I want to give an example of how it works, right? Misdirection of the narrative to obfuscate the real truth, alright? So there's an example going on right now relative to a social media company, alright? So I've probably given you a bit of time to absorb this. So the conclusion I got to, alright, and I'll offer this now because I'm going to offer context of some examples that are really good right now to employ to see the sub-layers below the narrative subtext and all that, of all the drama and all that, of what might be the reason behind it, alright? And what I was saying about the outrage mob, alright? So there's always known a variable of the populace is always going to get through the narrative, right? So it's known, okay? So what do you do with that there is going to be a will in people to get through whatever is thrown at them? So that's where the sub-narrative kicks in, alright? People like Q and all that sort of stuff. Agents. I really highly recommend go watching the TV show Homeland, alright, for many reasons. It's about the alphabet agencies and all the stuff going on. Don't you agree, mate? So, but the fundamental I'm getting right now is a huge bubbling up in potential in people and awakening, and that's what that star thing is, alright? So, to say that is the nature of the reality. So what the system would do is, how do we hijack that innate, deep echo bubbling up? When most people don't accept multidimensional, most people don't do healing, most people don't accept that, most people are in like sympathetic resonance to the falsehood because we've got Stockholm syndrome towards all the species and that have fucked us up, that it was a part of the invasion because they want to maintain control, right? and we have no reference of anything, so we're floating in an ocean with no direction sort of thing, right? So what does the system do? So this bubbling up is a threat. Well, we're going to create a people's champion that might be coming from a species very deep down that is a billionaire, so to speak. That we're going to create the illusion with the media and all that they're a good guy. They're wanting to do all this good and all this sort of shit. So there is in the narrative a false news and all this sort of shit, alright? And people don't buy it, so they go to the sub-narrative, to the conspiracy sort of things. And they're wanting to get to the bottom of all the crap, but they're only in a 3D 5 cents box. They'll never get into the multi-dimensional. So the system creates apparatus to deliberately inflame that outrage, alright? And they do shit to inflame the outrage, and all these individuals that could be working in these corporations could be chipped and influenced, and they get rewarded financially because they've got agendas and all this sort of stuff, and no one does any healing. No one comprehends that influences could be out there, which was like layer 4 or 3, when they're only operating in the first sub-layer, alright, of the narrative, alright? So, the example is, the People's Champion comes in and wants to be the bastion of truth and all this sort of shit, when all this energy just keeps us in the narrative and the sub-narrative, alright, but never goes deeper, because the truth is our dormant DNA is bubbling up, right? And so there's all this thing about medical stuff and all that sort of stuff. My attitude is it's all designed to maintain the status quo, right? With advancements in technology and all that sort of stuff, right? So number one is the truth is really bubbling up. 2, it alerts the falsehood Alamo to engage actors, and it triggers a player to kick in and do stuff. The narrative is all kicking in to support this dude, to create the perception of he's an ally and all this sort of stuff, to build the inertia of being a people's champion. So he goes in and does what he does and tells everyone what they want to hear, alright? And this is just drama in the narrative sort of stuff, okay? So what I'm inviting you to do is like, oh fuck, there's even something bigger, and all this drama is just chewing up the energies and maintaining the energy sort of falsehood and the placebo belief in people, and the you know, it's rewarding the outrage mob for, yeah, we're going to get some truth now, but it's just going to chew up time and distract, and that soul connection, like bubbling through, that's giving them the flame that they have no direction on, no coordinates of, because we're in this 3D 5 cents reality. It will nullify, and it will just be a counteraction to that in part. Does that make sense? Okay, so if I move through to the next one, that's my perception of it, and that's a template to see the pattern going forward in an algorithm of how the system counteracts sort of these potentials, alright? So if I move on, so this is sort of a diagram of another mechanics of that, alright? So I'll pause it for a bit so you can read it. So this is I use that one as an example. This is just a bit of how the mechanics work. So say 1, people are onto it and they want to dig deeper. So the bastion of falsehood is alert to it, and then it engages things to kick things off, alright? And so this is the mechanics of how it works in one way, alright? So humanity's awareness threat sees through the bullshit, alright? So, and this is another aspect of it, alright? This is what I'm getting to the money and the rising of the demands of survival and stuff, alright? Because it's going to probably get a bit dog eat dog, because people who've had it easy are going to be challenged, and they're not used to challenge, so it's going to reveal a lot of shit. And so last few years there's been a huge structural society sort of shift and all that sort of stuff. Things that you never thought could be possible, right? And so a lot of money was injected into reality, 29 trillion, probably a lot more, just let's say 29 trillion. So that devalues money a lot, right? So potentially the aim of that is to bring about this inflation in the cost of food, so we don't have the nourishment in our bodies to have perception. Does that make sense? All right. So perception, for those that aren't clear on that, it takes a lot to burst through. So if people have a lack of energy, then they're in survival mode in their body, and so the higher level technology in their body won't be able to activate. So the awareness isn't there, all right? Because people are in survival mode, and the cost of living has gone up. So the survival instincts are kicking in, and awareness and spirituality is a nice to have. It's not a necessity sort of thing with most people, alright? And they need a stable existence to flourish on the multidimensional level. And so if you've got kids and family and stuff, you've got freaking challenges, alright? And the interest rates are going to go up and all that sort of stuff. So there's all this uncertainty going forth, which creates fear, which creates more energy harvest and all this sort of stuff, right? Short-term gain over things and all that sort of stuff, right? So a big switch in the narrative was starting war, alright? And so there's got to be bad players and stuff. So my attitude is the whole war thing is obfuscating the costs that were going to be inserted based on how they got through society, what we went through, which we're always going to have to pay for. But potentially that was all set up to prevent the awakening that I showed on the last one, right? That was going to burst through, because people are going to really start seeing through all the bullshit, and so maybe more sub-layers are going to be added and all that sort of stuff in the narrative. But I'm just saying the mechanics of how it all works and how society works and stuff. So what I'm writing there is something I'm not going to say, alright? So you got to do contrarian of what's going on, alright? I see the structure of society as a big entity, and these mouthpieces and organizations and stuff are just shards of it that want us to... Long story short, I feel like the narrative and the system, they project to us how they feel, and we take it on. Like, so they're actually in a lot of fear of us, of what we'll do in a reaction. And that's why I appreciate the compassion and love and stuff. But I'm also like, these fucking slippery fuckers have been doing this shit for 250 billion years. They can't be trusted, because we have given them trust before, and then they've betrayed us, and we're in this mess because of that, alright? And that's the do no harm but take no shit, because we're taking so much shit to be here, alright? And they should be fearful of us, because, like I said, reducing us down to nothing and all that, like Metaguru and that, we've just given you a fucking head start. And that's where I'm like, I'm seeing it all, right? So my attitude is the higher cost of living and all that is to nullify something really big that's brewing, and we all feel it, alright? But I'm very careful in actually saying that, because I don't think humanity have it in them at the moment. We haven't done enough work and all that, and you know, most people do one healing a lifetime or a year or whatever. They need like 50 or 60, alright? Or more. So it's like we get close, and then the carrot's lifted years down the track and all that, and it just works against our mortality, alright? That was being reduced greatly from 5,000 years ago, alright, with the attack that went on in the Babylon massacre, when we used to live 800 years and we used to be a lot bigger and all this sort of stuff. And that's why all the giant sort of like skeletons have been removed and all this sort of stuff, right? So if I move on to the next one. So yeah, this is quote Thomas Cooper: fear and falsehood, dread, investigation, truth invites it. And there's a resistance for us having the truth, because then everything is when you know truth, it's very easy and effortless, and it's very hard to go to a naive state because you understand and it's clear and it fits and all that, like I did with the Tetris sort of images. And my attitude is creating all these sub-narratives and that is extremely energetically costly. It's unsustainable when truth is very efficient and cheap. And yeah, so in many respects the craziness and the variables are infinite almost that can be done, but the energy and stuff, it's, in my opinion, it's unsustainable. There is a gravitation to understanding. It's like a neutral sort of state of being aware, alright? So creating unawareness is a huge, not normal thing in the universe, alright? So it's just really an interesting experience and stuff. And you know, when you're honest, it's like me. I've talked about me a bit, and yeah, I've had experience of lying and stuff, and it fucking sucks. And I also hate the distortion in my body, like me and all the hardship I went through. Truth was like not even having false emotions and like having positive emotions and stuff. They all got costs, and I couldn't budget that. Alright, so I had to be very efficient, and that's where it's just like I fucking align with truth. To me, it's like, why would you do anything else? But people are fascinating because then they've got agendas and all this sort of stuff, and sometimes I do inserts and falsehoods to know where it comes from. You know, like if you watch the alphabet agency movies like CIA and that, when they're looking for moles, they offer sort of variables that are unique to each sort of stream, and then what comes back, you know where it's come from and stuff. So there is a discernment process that goes on with people to know where they're at, because that's to identify agendas and infiltrators and all this sort of shit with all these fucking species and that. So yeah, I'll just move on to the next image. So I'm doing a bit of an overview of that one again, alright? So I'm doing the mechanics, and I'll pause it a bit, alright? So this is where the information flack buries the nuggets of truth and all that sort of stuff, because there's a potential threat that's known that our awareness is brewing up. So say at the moment, and in the future it won't matter, because it's like when the ship that blocked the Suez Canal, it used to be a massive thing in the narrative, but no one remembers it now. Right now there's all this fucking shit about Johnny Depp and his partner having this fallout, and all the, like, Will Smith slapping, like, Chris Rock in the Oscars and shit, and all this Hollywood drama bullshit, alright, going on. So just think, like, I don't know what your Twitter, like your YouTube feed is and all that, but it's really interesting. The algorithms are just full of crap these days, alright? Those of you that were around in 10, 15 years ago, it used to be so awesome, you know? Everything was linked. They used to have the most popular videos and stuff, and it used to be all consciousness sort of stuff until Google took it over and all that, alright? So just see the apparatus and the sub-layers are directed by species of the Alamo of falsehood, Metaguru and all that bullshit, alright? They got minions that are their lightning rods of apex of control in these organizations, or billionaires, or media personalities and all that, Hollywood stars and all that, because they work for species. And then the truth gets boggled down by the bullshit, alright? So that's the question at the bottom. Like the algorithms and all that work in these social media to just obfuscate everything, and that's, to me, alright, do the contrarian of it, like I've done the images relative to trading, where the herd go for it and the trader goes in the opposite direction. Use what's going on as asking the questions even more if you do already, but what's it trying to obfuscate, alright? And that's where I'm getting now, is like, wow, there is a huge bubbling up. So the metaphor of me and my journey, if you don't believe Ashiana, that's cool, alright? But just say, I love the fact that I just didn't even know about it for so long. It's not an arrogant thing. I've deliberate, alright? But it's revealed itself in spite of all this sub-narrative bullshit and all the, like I say, the Stockholm Syndrome to the false species and all that shit that are our perpetrators that have caused all the shit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's interesting, hey? Because I think the sub-narrative stranglehold is starting to buckle. Alright, that's what I'm getting to. And it is something to focus on below it all. Alright, so if I move on to the next image. Awareness Stockholm Syndrome. So you just go Google what Stockholm Syndrome is or research on YouTube, but it's like, you know, if you're taken captive as a hostage, metaphor, then those those victims of that crime, they become aligned to the the perpetrator, alright? So it's, you got an empathetic, sympathetic resonance to the falsehood, alright? So I'm saying humanity and a lot of the community have a Stockholm Syndrome to these false fucking perpetrating species and shit that have a vested interest in the occupation because they were parts of it and they are an apparatus of it. And they're minions of the Metagru sort of thing from the Phantom Matrix and all that for our domination and that, alright? And yeah, so this is like when you give your perception authority away to someone, what the fuck do you think? Like, I don't want to instill uncertainty in people, but exploration is the key to wisdom, alright? Like, experience is the key to wisdom and investing money and all that and seeing what happens. But perhaps you don't know, like, you might think you're very minuscule and apathetic and insignificant and stuff, and you go to people and then they give you information, but you don't know what they're tapped into or who they work for and stuff like that. So I'm actually inviting, raise your bar on me first. Raise it, discernment bar on me, fucking as high as you want, alright? And if I don't match, then that's cool, alright? But I'm just inviting you to see the sympathetic resonance to the falsehood. If I am aligned with truth and hollow earth and it is the structure I'm saying, then you're going to feel most polarized towards me, alright? That's sort of a confirmation. I'm inviting you to sort of explore. And I'm available. You can just cross that line and see what happens, and maybe I'll totally fuck you up. And it'll be the worst thing ever happen to your life. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing you ever do to confirm all this, to rewire everything that you don't know. Play with me. I'm here. I'm making myself available and all that sort of stuff. And I'm taking the hits and done all these missions and got my own sacred site and all this sort of shit and doing pranic healings on the whole fucking planet because Earth invited me to do that. So, yeah, if I was aligned to falsehood, then I'd probably not be here. And I wouldn't have endured all the bullshit I've been through. And all the aspects that are that, you know, all this, they would have gotten rid of me a long time ago. I'm fucking a brat. I'm a pain in the ass. I'm relentless. And I have compassion for Metaguru, and I just think he's like a brother, but he's just like a fucking brat brother that needs a good fucking, like, lesson. And maybe that's what it all is on a mega scale. And, you know what I mean? It's just an interesting game and stuff, and we're just very, very old souls, all of us, and we get bored and we need all these challenges and stuff like that, and that's all cool. But I think, you know, the Ashiana stuff, it's been 250 billion years, we're all fucking over it, alright? There's got to be something new, because it's all the light and love that got us into all this trouble and trying to do the right thing and compassion and that, and it's not harsh to recognize that everything is being explored, not cleaning this up, and it hasn't worked. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, I just invite you to think about the Contrarian View. Go watch that, alright? And go watch the Trinity of Choices and stuff. Inaction is a choice, alright? So this is just the narrative, you know what I mean? Like, perhaps the majority of stuff out there is just untrustable. It's worth exploring. There might be nuggets of information. Maybe I'm totally wrong, alright? But what if this is the risk and we've accepted that and we've got a sympathetic resonance to the Stockholm Syndrome of the false teachers because they're the ones that are portraying themselves as the good guys when they're maintaining control when their control is fraying, because we're just too fucking awesome, alright? So this is quite long, and I don't want to make it too complicated. Maybe I'll introduce concepts other times and stuff, but I really invite you to, with all your investigation over the years and all your thoroughness and stuff, just maybe work out your own sub-narratives and stuff, right? Like I showed the images and stuff. Maybe I'll share them on my Instagram or something, or on Facebook, to make it a bit easier, because they're a bit complicated and stuff. But I invite you to use a computer and do like print screens and print out the images and have them there, and just use them as a bit of a template. And like I said, I just tried to do it really quick to not really get bogged down, because I had this really firecracker of truth that's, I think it's going to be very potent for a lot of you, that actually to help categorize stuff and see the structure of society and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's been quite long. I'm intending to offer at the end a really cool Ashiana clip, so I hope you continue and stuff. But thank you. Hey, I just realized I forgot something, so I'm doing a bit of insert. That was the whole purpose of this Echoes Part 5, and why it is an Echoes. And so I'm just going to insert this. I'm doing this a little, like half an hour or so after the main body I just done, right, that this is connected to. But yeah, it's very, very specific why I'm including this in the Amplify the Echoes of Your Soul's Ancient Truth. Just think about that. Amplify the echoes of the soul's ancient truth. And why this reality narrative and sub-narratives have been really quite escalated, and perhaps a lot of warfare and stuff between the aspects of the controllers of the sub-narratives are coming to the surface and stuff. And this is the whole thing, alright? I'll just show you this image. This is one of the early ones on, but that, right, that spark, like the bottom is the truth, right, under all the sub-narrative layers and stuff. And what I'm including this in the Echo series is the echoes of the truth that are deep within us, in our DNA, in our ancestry. The Babylon massacre sort of decimated, and we've been fumbling around for 5 to 25,000 years, because we lost the surface of the control back related to the Ayani massacre, and back way beyond that, 208,000, 216,000 years ago, sort of thing, where we lost the 10D, sort of the 12D aspect. And so we're the foundational levels of dimensional security, which I'm relating the 12D to the truth and stuff. All that sort of mechanics, right? So this is what the information I've gone through to get to the understanding of what I have. I'm sticking my neck out with it, right? But say, just ponder this. What if I'm right? What if that is the truth, and all the other bullshit is the sympathetic resonance of the falsehood that I've said, and this is the spark that's brewing, and that's why it's narrative and sub-narrative and escalation of challenging the reality and all this sort of stuff. The medical stuff that's gone on and all that was planned and was perceived, and in spite of all the invasion sort of occupation plan that has been instilled into this reality, and we're trying to navigate, we're still that fucking amazing, and we're still got this going on, alright? So don't ever let whatever is, or whoever around you is diminishing you, to take you away from that. I'm just inviting you to contemplate that this craziness in this world is to obfuscate that simple truth that we can self-generate. We don't need guides, we don't need light language and all that sort of shit. We can just know it ourselves and be aware of it, right? So this is the cool thing, right? This is why I do what I do and what I've shared my path and that, right? This is a metaphor for the world and the narrative and all that sort of stuff, but how about this? We all have this mechanics in ourselves of our own sub-narratives that might be hidden, might not be seen and stuff, and see, we've got all of these sort of shit with our own selves that you can do yourself, right? Traumas, past lives, all that sort of crap, right? And I'm inviting you to be proactive on yourself even more than you've ever done, right? Use what's going on out there as, oh fuck, they're scared of us. So go harder, be more thorough, be more courageous in your exploration to go into your own sub-narratives, and that's where going to healing and all these layers can be there, and that's what I deal with and stuff, right? So just see that as a metaphor of that, right? Because maybe your truth is what we're getting to the bottom of your own truth, and we're getting close. So as crazy as it is, that craziness out there is to obfuscate this. And once we do get it, we know ourselves and stuff, it's game over. So yeah, I hope you gain something from this. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey in this really interesting, epic, crazy ride. And I just really want you to invite you to see that these sort of things come in, these players come in, but maybe it is a confirmation now of things are so crazy that the threat of our awareness is so epic. So don't cause harm to your fellow man if you're in trouble. Be willing to ask for help. I've got this attitude, humble like the dust. I need to go dust mode and be honest, you know? So maybe that could be a code for people to speak their truth and not be polarized and stuff, to disarm. Because like I said, all this fuckery was going on and it was fucking metagrew. And got us pretty good. But that shit, misguided shit, doesn't last. So I thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey. If you get something, cool. If you don't, cool. If this is the last thing you ever see of me, awesome. Have a great journey, guys. But until next time, I hope you rock it and you find your brat mode and you engage it and you don't take it out on your fellow man, and you be willing to go deeper in yourself to get through to the sub-layer, the sub-narratives of you to get through to your truth, and don't be relentless. It's fun, alright? Until next time, guys, lots of love. Andre out.
Okay, wait, I'm getting a little direction here to go someplace else with this. All right, I'll go right there. All right, I'll just get to the point of the things I want to talk about tonight. I've been trying to ease this all around into this space, but it's probably the best way to do it when I think about it, is there's one thing that we're all very aware of, and it's very real to every one of us right now, at least if we have a TV it is. Something amazing just happened in the United States on September 11th. Something just happened that we all are aware of, and many of us are sitting there going, what does this mean? What is this going to do? What is this a part of? Okay, we know this guy named Ben Laden and a bunch of terrorists have, just done this horrendous thing. I mean, the magnitude of this horrendous thing, it's almost numbing. I don't know if it affected any of you that way, but I remember watching it. We happened to come in the door when the stuff was on TV, live, and we got to see the, like the second plane going in. What are my eyes seeing? It's just like a numbing screen goes down where your emotional body just has no idea how to react to what you just saw, especially in America. Nobody can do that to America. Well, at least we were told nobody could do that to America. We're in the middle of a huge drama that when you look at what just happened in the mass drama, people that don't believe in metaphysics, people that don't care about metaphysics, or ETs, or fallen angels, or nice angels, just everyday people, we've all shared this drama. There is a metaphysical cause beneath what happened. What we're going to learn about through this particular workshop is, first of all, what really happened there. Now, it's important for us to understand what happened with the World Trade Centers and with the Pentagon, because it's not important because, well, we have to worry about what's going to get blown up next. That's not why it's important. Why it's important is that event took place because of a series of events that began in the 1930s. World War II was a part of those events. They are connected to what is called the 1983 Montauk Project in Montauk, New York. They are connected to what is called the 1943 Philadelphia Experiment. Most people that even actively pursue trying to find out what those New Age buzzwords are, the UFO movement buzzwords are, don't have a whole lot of information. They have a lot of guesswork. To understand the connections between what happened with the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and what was supposed to happen in Philadelphia, but they didn't get the plane there, to understand the connection between that, between Montauk, the Philadelphia Experiment, World War II, the fact that now we're in the new world war against terrorism that's moving us towards something, all of this has to do, believe it or not, with Atlantis and with the plan that was devised in Atlantis called the Luciferian Covenant. It was an invasion plan that was planned and staged incrementally, step by step by step. And there were certain events that were supposed to unfold once the stellar activation cycle of 2000 to 2017 AD came around. Now, most people have heard the concept or the word Illuminati. That's a word that gets thrown around all over the internet and all over, conspiracy theorists. What the heck are they? We know they're not nice, and they seem to be able to have all this power, and there's like invisible race that walks among us and pulls all these strings where we think we're free and we're not. The Illuminati are a group of beings called the Leviathan races. They were created out of the tribes of Levi, which were a hybrid tribe of Anunnaki human that were part of a hybridization experiment that was done in Atlantis. It was done for good purposes, but it went very, very wrong. There have been race lines nurtured here since Atlantis, family lines, of people who carry the Leviathan race DNA codes, who actually, when you look at, if you were going to look at them on the soul level, they are actually a different race of beings than human beings. Human souls incarnate out of a certain set of soul collectives. They have what is called a Christos spark. Now, Christos is a word that we use in reference to the D12, dimension 12, pre-matter template, your divine blueprint that allows you to connect to the higher dimensional fields and directly to source. Illuminati races are born without a Christos spark because the ones who created those races in the Atlantean period were what were called fallen angelic races. Now, if you don't like the spiritual terms and you're more into ET stuff, you could say the same thing, call them intruder ET races, because fallen angelics and intruder ETs are the same beings. They are multidimensional. They have the ability to move through matter density levels, which so do we when our DNA is working the right way. We are in the middle of a final conflict drama that started way before Atlantis. Its last round was during the last attempted stellar activation cycle, which was in 22,326 BC. They almost destroyed Earth and the human race in 22,326 BC. But what we call the founders races, the Emerald Covenant founders races, which were the genetic line that humans came out of originally, and these were a Christos race. They were literally from dimensions 13, 14, and 15, and then the Christos races started at dimension 12. The founders races, these are real beings. They have bodies, not exactly like ours, but they're less dense matter. The Christos founders races intervened directly on Earth in 22,326 BC. We wouldn't be here talking about it if they hadn't. There was a stalemate in a very ancient conflict that was continually going on and getting worse and worse the more fighting was done, the more fighting became. Fighting did not create peace between the fallen angelic races and the angelic human races. The reasons fallen angelic races have been after human races for so long is because human races were created they were created by God, using the founder's genetic imprint to serve as the planetary guardian team for the stargates here, so this place would not be taken over by the fallen angelic legions. They were also commissioned to try to help heal the fallen angelic legions if they could, but not at the expense of getting themselves destroyed. What has happened on this planet, literally, for many, many thousands of years now, if we've been going through what's called a dark cycle of evolution, there were certain frequencies that were no longer available on this planet, D12 frequencies, Christos frequencies. There is, when we think of Christos, most people think of religious and spiritual terms, and that's fine, but there's also a scientific physics equivalent of that spirituality. Spirit is consciousness. Consciousness is a form of energy, and energy does have natural laws of physics to follow. So a very long time ago, before it even got bad in Atlantis, there was an event called the Fall of Brennaway that took place, and that's when we entered our dark cycle. That was in 208,216 BC. In the Fall of Brennaway, it was a stellar activation cycle like this one. We were invaded by a group called the Omicron Draconian races from Alnitak, Orion. Now, Alnitak, if you look on your star charts, is a planet in the Orion system. We were invaded, and our planet's stargates were damaged, and the planetary grids were damaged. So Stargate 11 and 12 would not open, which means the planet could only run 10 dimensions of frequency. The fallen angelic races have a maximum frequency range as far as what they can interfere with, what they can use in their technologies, of dimension 11. The Anunnaki races can access 11-dimensional frequency. The Omicron Draconians can access 10-dimensional frequency. The Guardian races, the human races, the Founders races, could access 12-dimensional frequency and higher. But when this planet had its grids damaged to the point where it could no longer run anything above D10 frequency, we were in trouble. All of a sudden, the frequencies that we used to protect the stargates and the vortices on this planet, we couldn't bring the frequencies through. So progressively, invasions took place. We have a huge history of warring that has taken place on this planet since 208,216 BC. And we have begun, actually, in the book, the new book that's coming out, if we ever get done with this stuff, is called The Forbidden Testaments of Revelation. In that book, we actually show you literally what the history has been, step by step. It's not as if we're just saying this and we think there's some history or we're guessing. The history that I'm talking about comes off records from the Atlantean period called cloister doratura plates. They're holographic discs that hold massive amounts of information. So the history records that I've been translating come from these plates. When we start to realize the history that's gone on here, it's dumbfounding compared to what we have been taught. Here we're taught that, well, maybe we came out of apes and, somewhere around 5,000 years ago we happened, and no, maybe the other theory is there's a big bang and molecules and things collided, and then eventually it turned into pond scum, and then eventually that grew like flippers, and eventually that grew feet, and then we started to walk around, and somehow we became humans. Some real interesting theories we have out there. Talk about holes in the theories. Ours make a whole lot more sense than those two. All right. What's one of the most amazing things, as far as if we're going to get a grasp on our reality today, on what has taken place in our world today, and what we can do to prevent certain things from happening that we'd be much better off without, is that huge challenge of grasping how large human history is, how huge this drama is. We're not just dealing with a couple of terrorist groups over in another country that like to run planes into buildings. They're just puppets. We're dealing with highly, highly sophisticated, what could be considered extraterrestrial races, but they are fallen angelic races. Humans were an angelic race that's in the precarious balance of finding out whether it's going to be fallen or whether it's going to pick itself up, dust itself off, and say, okay, we've had enough. We're the guardians of this planet. This isn't going to happen anymore. We're in a position that if we don't very rapidly get at least a small grip on the magnitude of what we're dealing with, enough to take it seriously. Because if we take it seriously, we'll do what needs to be done to affect things in a positive way here. If we don't take it seriously, if we think it's more important to find out what's on TV tomorrow night and, like, you know, to watch a sitcom or something. Now, it's all right to watch sitcoms, but there is a crisis at hand. And that crisis is our planet is going to go through, in the next 2-year period, some major changes in frequency. Now, changes in frequency are normal during stellar activation cycles. If the planet and its what we call the grids, which are actually scalar wave templates that hold the matter base of the planet together, if the planetary template is in good condition, it will naturally pass through stellar activation cycles, the stargates will open, more frequency will come in through the stargates, and the oscillation rhythm of the particles of the planet will pick up. And it will just naturally, literally, the frequency moves up, and the planet moves through stellar activation, and there's no big bangs or pole shifts or anything messy. However, if a planet goes through stellar activation cycle, and its scalar template is all messed up, if its electromagnetic fields are all messed up, it creates a very big mess. If we look at some of the things that have managed to survive since Atlantis, like the Bible, which has been highly, highly edited from what it used to be. The things I'm teaching now used to be in the text that were supposed to be the Bible. In the Bible, in the book called Revelation, there's a very colorful picture of events that were to take place at some mysterious, unknown times called the end times. And it depicted a certain series of things about angels and 7 seals and all sorts of very interesting things people have been trying to figure out what they mean for ages. In that story is encoded. It was encrypted in symbol form. And it was a story about technology. And it was a story about a planned invasion that was going to go down here. And it was a story about a group of Anunnaki races that are called the Anu Elohim and the Jehovian Anunnaki. Now, before the Jehovian Anunnaki groups wanted to take over this planet, human beings didn't call their God Jehovah, nor did they call it Yahweh. Those were names of collectives, family names, of fallen angelic races that were inserted into our holy texts to hijack our religions, to hijack our stories, and there was a deadline. There was a deadline for when the game would be up here. In Atlantis, we were very aware. We had minimum of 12 strands of DNA. We had huge amounts of awareness. We knew that we were avatars. We knew our commission as planetary guardians. We knew Templar mechanics, the sacred sciences. And there were events that took place that we lost a few rounds in some battles with the fallen angelic races. And when I say fallen angelic, remember, you can picture the Sci-Fi Channel and use E.T. if you want to substitute, because it's the same thing. They're the same beings. They came in and they got a few rounds on their side where they messed up the planetary grids so badly that they were able to create something called a scalar sonic pulse that ran through the planetary grids. It's a magnetic pulse that messes with the magnetic fields. Now, even our scientists know that the planetary magnetic fields have a whole lot to do with memory and with the function of human consciousness. They don't exactly know why yet, but the why is because consciousness is connected to the DNA template, and the DNA template is made of scalar wave patterns, which are electromagnetic wave patterns. So if there is a large magnetic disruption in the planetary fields, you can do amazing things to the DNA of life forms on that planet. The reason we have no memory right now is because of something that was done in Atlantis. And the reason it is very important that we begin to try to very quickly grasp as much of ourselves as we can, even if we don't know we have our avatar levels of self. If we can begin with believing that we do, that's how you find them. You're not going to be able to integrate your higher parts of self unless you realize they're there. I've never, ever been the doom and gloom type person. And I told the Iani when I was working with them the last couple of years, say, don't start talking to me about pole shift because I don't want to hear it. You have all sorts of people out there in the New Age movement, saying all sorts of horrible things are going to happen. If it's that bad we can't do anything about it, I don't want to know, and I certainly don't want to teach it, you know? And they said, all right, well, actually, it's not that bad. We've focused on solutions all along. We've had to very quickly move through helping people to understand Kathara healing, so they'd understand their body systems, tangible structure of the soul, so they'd understand how those body systems plug into their spiritual consciousness systems, and then very quickly go into planetary grid mechanics, so we could begin to work with the planetary grids to create healing. And a lot has been done already. We've made great accomplishments. But at this point, our accomplishments have been done so well in healing the planetary grids that the agendas of the fallen angelic races, agendas they've held, literally, since the Atlantean period, when they were just going to saunter in here and just take over the place very easily. They were going to actually come in and introduce themselves with names like Moses and say, hi, we created you. We're your space brothers, you know, and just show us how to run our planet better. And there was an objective at the end of it. They don't want humans. They don't even want surface Earth. Earth is a strategic location for something called the Halls of Amenti Stargates. Earth has portals that lead directly into the Halls of Amenti Stargates. The Halls of Amenti Stargates are a universal stargate system that literally extends into all of the primary stargates in our 15-dimensional time matrix. That's what they're after. Earth is the most vulnerable link in the chain of galaxies that have connection to the Halls of Amenti Stargates. So what they had in mind for us, way back in Atlantis when they set this plan, was make us stupid, erase our memories, give us some false books and things, take the old books and just insert stuff and take out the good stuff, have us like little sheep by the time they were ready to come in, then set a series of events in motion that would make them able to come in very easily with no resistance. Now, one of the ways to do that would be, first of all, to have people believing in an externalized God that's outside of themselves, that has a certain name and a certain face. All right, you already got an image to use when you come in to say hi that people will be receptive to. Part of the plan, and this is called the Illuminati Master Plan, the One World Order Master Plan, was to set up, about 100 years before, subtle contact. That's when the channeling movement started. Subtle contact with their races. Their races, meaning the hybrid races, who don't have human souls incarnate in them, but who have either Anunnaki or Draconian souls incarnate in them. The interesting thing is, we've all been taught, since our memory was erased, that we're only one race. We have bodies that are very similar, and because of what's been done to the DNA, right now our DNA appears to be the same, because certain portions of the DNA are repressed in both races, so the similarities show that the differences don't. About 100 years ago, the channeling movement actually got its seeds planted, because it was time. That's when the Anunnaki started to connect with some of their hybrids. Their hybrids don't know they're hybrids. They don't. They think they're just human like anybody else. They don't know what human is either. You know? The hybrid people are not bad people. It's not that they're, bad fallen angelic people. They're just people who lost their memory too. And the reason they lost their memory is they were trying to rebel against and get away from the fallen angelic collectives in Atlantis. That was part of the reason. They had their hybrids that were saying, well, we're starting to grow and understand that the ways you're doing things and dominion and killing other life forms and things, that's wrong. We don't want to be part of your collective anymore. They were going into what was called the Emerald Covenant Christos contract. And that meant that the fallen angelics' hold on the planet was getting less and less. If they lost their hybrid races, they would have a very hard time coming in directly, because most of them can't live physically on this planet because of their own biologies. So we have a situation right now where there is progressively, for 100 years, been an invasion, a very quiet, subtle invasion. The plan for the invasion was created in 9560 BC. It was formalized then. It's been there for a long time, but that's when it got formalized, when a whole group of Anunnaki races are races that were created by what is called the fallen Anu Elohim. Okay, you have Elohai and Elohim. They are two different. The Elohai Elohim are the founders' races, one set of founders' races. The Anu Elohim are ones that were fallen angelics. They chose to sever their connection to Source, and they started to create dominion agendas and literally started to feed off the rest of the time matrix. So when I talk about Anunnaki, I'm talking about the children of the fallen Anu Elohim. Just like when I talk about humans, I'm talking about the children of the Elohai that came in here as the guardians. There are numerous different groups of Anunnaki. Many of them don't like each other. They've been warring with each other as much as they've been warring with humans or anything else. But in 9560 BC, there was agreement made by several competing groups. They're called the Palladian Nibiruan Anunnaki. That means some of them are from the Pleiades star system. Some of them are from a planet called Nibiru, which used to be our 12th planet until they hijacked its orbit, and now it only circulates in here every 3,600 and some years. With the Luciferian Covenant agreement, it was a step-by-step plan to, first of all, level the playing field, which they did during the Atlantean flood period. In 9558 BC, they used a technology called APIN systems. APIN is a physical technology. It's called the Atlantean Pylon Implant Network System. Imagine microchips. Okay? Imagine microchips that operate through particularly selenite types of quartz. You know how we use quartz in radios and different things? It's a mineral. It has some certain properties as far as electrical transmission and transduction goes. There's an advanced technology that utilizes what would be considered very advanced microchip technology that can be used on a planetary level, where literally grids were laid out all across the planet. The planet was mapped, and it was mapped from above, from spaceships. I mean, they weren't, they weren't foot soldiers like we have been down here. We weren't then either. There were these grids put in to the planet that would receive remote frequency transmissions from other planetary systems. They could be used for good things, or they could be used for horrible things. And in Atlantis, they were used for horrible things. They were used, these APIN systems, were used by the Anunnaki and several other competing groups to literally reverse the natural electromagnetic balances of Earth's magnetic fields, which totally messed up the DNA of humans. Now, once that was done, you had a bunch of what used to be angelic humans and a lesser amount of hybrid Illuminati races that really just wanted to be good guys. All of a sudden, they're all running around not knowing who they are, having mutations in their brainwaves. Their brainwaves aren't working the same way. Their hormones were not working the same way. What used to be an 800-year lifespan went down to about 100 because of these electromagnetic changes that were made to happen on the planet because of these advanced technologies. Now, these technologies are not just something that were a horrible problem in our past. The APIN systems, these microchip networks that were literally implanted throughout the planetary grids in key positions in relation to stargates, portals, ley lines, and what are called axiotonal lines, which are the main energy vertical running lines that circulate energy through the planet. These systems are part of what's happening today. World War II had to do with these systems. You don't read that in the history books either. There has been something going on here for a very long time. And at the core of it is an ancient Atlantean technology, the APIN systems, that have been here and were implanted in the grids by certain competing Anunnaki and Draconian forces in order to get control of the planetary grids and the planet and the halls of Amenti when the next stellar activation cycle came, because that is the only time they can get through to the halls of Amenti. We are in that stellar activation cycle. And because our lifespans are so short, and because when we come into a fetal body through fetal integration, it's like lights out, we don't remember who we are, because the DNA is so damaged we can't bring in our higher consciousness. It might seem amazing to us to think somewhere between 25,500 years ago and 10,500 years ago, somebody put microchips in the planetary grids, and now there's a problem for us? Yeah, it is a problem for us. What happened with the World Trade Center was because of microchip technology. What happened at the Pentagon was for the same reason.
Take my hand and fly away with me over mountains and seas, far away from the pain to a place where we're all free, as we fly together, you and me. We will build a new world, still believing in love. I know that we will be together and free, together forever. Move on to an island across the sea. And fly away with me over mountains and seas, far away from the pain to the place where we're all free, as we fly together, you and me. We will build a new world, still believing in love. I know that we will be together and free, together forever. Move on to an island across the sea.
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.